I live in a small home in a fairly decent neighborhood, and I also work from home as well. I have my office set up upstairs in a small room, with my desk right by a window that faces the front of the house. I liked being able to open it for fresh air, or have the view when it was nice out. This was as fall was just starting, so I pretty much had the window open all day. One regular weekday though, around noon, I was doing my usual work at my desk when I noticed something out the window. There was a person, a man, standing at the bottom of my driveway, not walking past it or stopping to tie a shoe or anything. He was just standing there and looking up at my house. I couldn't tell if he could see me in the window or not, but after only a few seconds of me looking at him, he walked away. I thought it was really strange, but that was about it. What else was I supposed to think or do? I continued with work. I did an occasional check out the window every now and again, but seeing nothing else, I wasn't too worried about it. The following day, I was on the same routine. I got to work and was pretty busy the whole day. I had a lot of video calls with my coworkers. During one of these calls, I spaced out and happened to glance out the window again. That man was there, standing in the same spot at the end of the driveway and looking up at the house just like he was before. Something about this time was 10 times more creepy and eerie. Why the hell was he back here? I must have stared off at him for a while, because one of my coworkers noticed I looked worried and asked if everything was okay. I said yeah and tried to refocus on the meeting. I kept looking back though. He was standing there for a minute, then I looked back again and he was gone. The rest of my workday felt to drag on. I couldn't stop thinking about this random guy looking up at my house. It was just so odd. When I got out of work, I went outside and walked around my driveway, looking for any reason for them to be looking up at my house like that. Everything looked normal. However, I did notice that the window of my office was visible and clear from where the man was standing, which means he could likely see me looking at him. I went back inside and made dinner. I had a call with my brother that night, and I mentioned it. He agreed it was odd, but said it was likely nothing. After getting off the phone, I sat down and watched TV, hoping to get my mind off of it. A couple hours passed. It was maybe 9 p.m. I had the show turned down because I was getting tired, but with the low volume, I was able to hear what I thought were footsteps outside my house. I jolted up from the couch and stared at the front door. The footsteps walked up, only stopping for a brief second, then walked away. I hurried over to the door and looked out the peephole. I could only faintly see a figure walking down to the road. Once they were gone, I opened the door. Immediately, I noticed a note taped to the back. It was short. It just said, "Pat, answer the door." I was not only confused, but horrified. How did they know my name, and what was the note even supposed to mean? They didn't even knock or stay long enough for me to have answered the door. Not that I would have anyway.
Meet your new Dell PC with Intel.
Not that I would have anyway. This was enough for me to call the police. 2 officers came over, and I told them everything. Unfortunately, there wasn't all that much they could do though. They pretty much wrote it all down and said if something else happens, call them. It really didn't make me feel much better. I stayed up late that night, laying in bed, unable to sleep. I literally just laid there for hours, thinking about this man that was stalking my house and the eerie note he left. Then, at just before 2 a.m., a knock at the front door echoed through the otherwise silent house. My body froze up. The silence of the house was now deafening as I listened in fear. After a few seconds, they knocked again. My heart started beating faster. I got my phone and called 911. They sent officers right away, but the knocks continued the whole time I waited. Eerily, they never got louder or more rushed or aggressive. It was just the same knocking, over and over, echoing through the hallways of my home. The operator on the phone updated me that the cops were 2 minutes out, and just after that, there was a longer pause between the knocking. 15 seconds, then 30, then a whole minute passed. When the officers showed up, nobody was at the door. They were too late. Again, I told them what happened, and they seemed to take it a little bit more seriously this time, but it still wasn't enough for them to do anything about it. They said they would have an officer patrol around here for the next couple weeks. Those weeks came and went, and the man never came back up to my door or to the end of the driveway, at least from what I know. It's been months later now, and still nothing else. It still scares the hell out of me though. The thought of the creepy note telling me to answer the door and then there being knocking at 2 a.m. is just terrifying. Then there's also the thought of them coming back, lingering in my head. I don't know what they wanted, who they were, or if they're truly gone for good. This was when I was a freshman in high school. The town I lived in was small, and I guess you could say pretty old-fashioned compared to places nowadays. It was very woodsy all around, and the buildings and houses weren't so compacted together. My home was out in the woods. My parents had a decent amount of land, and my dad had built the place with his dad. Anyway, it didn't have a real road or driveway. It was more of a dirt trail, so the school buses didn't have a stop at our place. I'd either have to walk a mile to my friend's house to get picked up, or just walk the extra distance straight to school. Usually, I just walk all the way to school. This was a typical day, as far as I could tell. I was walking down the trail from my home, enjoying the calm morning sounds of the woods, when I spotted a car up ahead. It wasn't my parents' car, or anyone else's that I knew, and it was just parked right on the trail. This trail only led to and from the house, so someone being on here was unusual. I don't know if I'd ever seen a random car here at all before this. I felt kind of uncomfortable having to pass it. There was a woman inside. She looked 35 or 40, with dark circles under her eyes and shaggy black hair. She glanced at me, but I just looked down. I could feel her eyes on me as I walked past, though. I picked up the pace and got to school. At the dinner table that night, I mentioned it to my parents, asking who it was and why they were there. Both of them looked worried and confused. They told me the woman must have just gotten lost and I shouldn't worry about it, but I could see the worry in their eyes. They dropped me off at school for the next week, which was odd because they both started work early, like 6 a.m., so they must have called in late for the entire week just to drop me off. Honestly, I thought that it was an overreaction, as I felt I was old enough to handle myself, but I knew my parents were just being safe. On Monday morning of the following week,
We often forget about the Lord. If this continues, we will drift away from the Lord, become corrupted, and
On Monday morning of the following week, I packed up my book bag and started walking. During the last week that I'd been dropped off, we never saw the woman or the car, so I really wasn't worried at all anymore. However, this time, when I got to that same spot in the woods, she was there again, sitting in her car, watching me. I had a mini heart attack. This was too much to be a coincidence, showing up twice on the trail that was basically our driveway, sitting in the same spot, and only showing up when I was walking alone. I made the decision to cut through the woods instead of walking past her again. I took a few steps off the trail, but immediately the woman noticed. She turned her car on and drove up closer to me. I pretended to ignore her, walking faster into the woods. I heard her car door open and her footsteps crunching on the leaves behind me. But then she called out my name, like my full name, in this eerily calm and loving voice. I turned my head and looked at her. She had this dead stare and blank, expressionless face. Her eyes were tired and heavy, and she had this sickly look. I sprinted away, and after losing sight of her, I circled back through the woods to my house, where I called my parents. They called the police and came home right away. What I didn't expect was my parents to know exactly who the woman was. It was my dad's ex-wife from almost 2 decades ago. Apparently, she'd had mental health issues for a while and would have these horrifying episodes where she'd get obsessed with something and do disturbing things. The day I told them I saw her, my parents reported it to the police, knowing it had to be her. Police failed to do anything about it though, only checking up on her and saying she seemed normal. For that whole week though, she had been stalking our house, knowing that every time my parents left for work early, it meant I would be walking alone to school. My parents never told me what happened to her after this, or what she was trying to do to me, or why she was doing any of it. Hopefully, nothing like that happens again.